Assalamu alaikum to all our viewers. My name is Nazim Kazmi. With me today is Sayed Firdaus, who will be hopefully answering some more of your questions and queries raised during the show, responding to Fareed's objections. Hopefully, you will have benefited from our previous shows, and you will see a certain picture developing of how 14 centuries of biased and state-sponsored academia has sought to cover up a tragic and heinous crime against the family of the Prophet. Peace and blessings be upon them all. So without much further digression, I will pass this on to Brother Sayed Firdaus. Sayed Firdaus, could you help us address the issue of whether Imam Ali alayhi salam gave his daughter to Umar after the incident and the historical context surrounding this? Thank you.
The objection is actually pretty silly because the people who make these objections bring up all the time Kulthum marriage to Umar and that Umar was son-in-law of Amir al-Mu'minin. This is a silly objection, and because these people have no other way to defend Umar, they bring up these concepts of marriage and so on. And if they had read actually the details of the marriage of Kulthum and Omar narrated in their books and also in our books, they would have never stick to this topic, because in either version, the Shi'i version and the Sunni version, none of those are in their favor, because they want to prove that friendship through this marriage between Amir al-Mu'minin and Omar. But neither of the two versions that exist for these for this marriage proves this kind of friendship between Amir al-Mu'minin and Omar. Also, there are objections whether this marriage happened at all. So even if it happened, we have examples of it in Quran, for example, that does not prove any kind of friendship between the two groups. A marriage does not prove friendship. It very evident in the Quran that Prophet Lut alayhi salam, for example, he offered his daughters to kuffar who were sodomizers who were disbelievers. He offered his daughters for marriage to them. So does it prove that they were friends with Prophet Lut alayhi salam? No, not at all. They were disbelievers. Quran says they were disbelievers. They were sodomizers. They were doing sodomy. So how can you say that marriage proves friendship between two groups, especially in the Arab culture of that time? So the Sunni version, which is actually, if you look into it in details, basically first their reports say that Omar offered to Amir al-Mu'minin to ask his daughter for marriage, but Amir al-Mu'minin said that she is very young, she is a minor. I cannot give her to you for marriage. She is very small. So Omar then insisted, and then allegedly Ali salam said to him, yes, I will send her to you, look at her, and then if you liked her, then I give you her for you to marry her. And which is in itself very, this is very strange from an Arab man like Amir al-Mu'minin to do this. And they talk about ghira all the time, and in this case they just put a blind eye. And the content of what Omar then did to this little girl is just, you cannot really, it's very, very shocking. So this old man, Omar, uncovers the leg of this little girl that he wants to marry and kisses her also. And then this little girl, Kulthum allegedly, then says to him, "You are an old evil man. You're a pervert. If you've not been a caliph, I would have poked your eye." So, do they really want to endorse and bring this narration and want to say that this was Omar? Do they really want this story to prove friendship between the two families? It's very embarrassing. There were versions they have, more or less in few versions of this narration that they have. All of these chains are weak, but some of their scholars they have said because all of these narrations they have several chains that it has to have some base. Any case, the content is not satisfying for them at all. So portrays Omar as a pervert, an old pervert who's touching an unmahram girl, little girl, whom he wants to marry, and he kisses her while not married to her. So, and uncovers her body. So this is problematic for both sides. They portray his father Amir al-Mu'minin as someone who has no ghira, and also portray Omar as a pervert. So if they want to accept it, they're welcome to accept that. That's their version. We have nothing to do with it. As about the Shia version of this, there are narrations in Shia books as well about this marriage, and the picture is completely different. It has the basic thing that Amir al-Mu'minin did not want to give her for marriage to Umar. But Umar insisted and forced Amir al-Mu'minin and said, by saying that if you don't do that, I will bring witnesses to testify against you, and I will, that you stole something, and I will chop off your hands. This is basically what he said. And those narrations state that Amir al-Mu'minin then gave the permission of her marriage to his uncle Abbas, and Abbas then gave her to marriage to Umar. And also narrations they state that Umar was killed before even the marriage was consumed, so to speak, with Umar. And in any case, it does not prove, the Shia version does not prove the friendship that they want to prove with these. So neither the Sunni nor the Shia version, none of them is in their help, in their support, and what they want to portray by sticking to this report. And some of their scholars, they have affirmingly said that no, this Kulthum was not daughter of Amir al-Mu'minin Ali alayhi salam, but rather she was daughter of Abu Bakr, because Abu Bakr also had a daughter called Kulthum. She was actually the one married to Omar, as stated by their scholars like An-Nawawi. An-Nawawi clearly says in his book Tahzib al-Asma that the Kulthum whom Omar married was daughter of Abu Bakr, not daughter of Ali alayhi salam. And also in their books, if you see, they confuse these two all the time. So even if in their books of hadith and sometimes in the chain, they confuse the two. Sometimes they, for the same chain, they mention, for example, Kulthum bint Ali, and the same narration but the same chain in some other books they say Kulthum bint Abi Bakr, for example. They confuse the two all the time. So it's not far-fetched that they have made up these stories and attached it to Kulthum, daughter of Amir al-Mu'minin. In any case, the basic thing is that none of these versions of this marriage proves any kind of friendship between Amir al-Mu'minin and Omar. And it's actually sticking to ambiguous stuff and leaving out the explicit, decisive narrations that they have. For example, in Sahih Bukhari, in their Sahih Bukhari, it says that Amir al-Mu'minin did not want to be in a place where Omar was. He hated them that much, especially for the incidents of the allegiance after they attacked the house of Fatima Al Zahra Salamun alayha. Even in the same version that Aisha, for example, mentions that Amir al-Mu'minin came to Abu Bakr and after 6 months and wanted to pledge allegiance, and he didn't want Omar to be present there because he disliked it, definitely. So they leave those kinds of narrations and stick to these kinds of marriages which do not prove anything, any kind of friendship based on any kind of principles. Based on these reports, you cannot prove friendship between the two. Based on Quran, you cannot prove the friendship between the two, and based on any other standards, you cannot prove any kind of friendship between the two, even if we accept completely 100% accept that she was married off to Omar. And as about if you say your versions of the story, Shia version is also problematic, we can give you the example of Quran, as I said. Lut alayhi salam offered his daughters because of the need, because of the situation, to kuffar, to disbelievers, sodomizers, he offered his daughters. So if you have any objection, can you object to the Prophet Lut alayhi salam, a prophet of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? So any kind of answer you give for that, he will give you the same answer for Amir al-Mu'minin alayhi salam. So yeah, basically this objection is also silly, and if these people who bring up these, if they had read the entire thing, they would have never brought up these to prove any kind of friendship. They bring this in a lot of topics that we discuss between Shia and Sunnis, and the objection is actually silly. So any case, you can dismiss it based on every principle that you can think of.
Thank you for that helpful, in-depth analysis. Firstly, neither the Sunni or the Shia account does Umar any favors. He's not portrayed in a positive light, regardless of whichever narrative you choose to look at. And I also take on board your point that there is a significant difference of opinion as to whose daughter she actually was, whether she was Abu Bakr's daughter or whether she actually was the daughter of Hazrat Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam. With that in mind, even if we were to assume she was actually the daughter of Imam Ali alayhi salam, then we come to the point where to say that for somebody who is appointed by Allah to offer his daughter to wrongdoers is not necessarily a sign of friendship or congenial relations. We see the instance in the Quran of Hazrat Lut alayhi salam offering his daughter to his actually homosexual ummah who were intent on committing sins. So offering daughters to homosexuals to try and reform them is an established practice to prevent a greater evil. So how would this actually prove that the reason for this was something based on a mutual respect or pleasant relations between the two parties? It simply does not. It's an assumption which is not based on facts. It's an assumption based on ideological a desire to show that all the Sahaba were friendly amongst each other. Then we come to the fact that in the Sunni narration, Imam Ali alayhi salam tells Umar that this is a very young woman stroke child. And then there's the account that she is sent to be inspected. Now, having read Islamic history and having read the accounts, it would be difficult for anyone to show where, other than in the years of Jahiliyyah, that a prospective bride was sent to be inspected to the groom. It's certainly not something that's sanctioned by Islamic morals. And if anybody claims to do so, then let's see all the muftis and Sunni scholars sending their daughters to the groom's house to be inspected by the groom before marriage. If they will not allow it for their own daughters, why do they accept that this is the case here? And then the actual account of what happens when the child is brought before Umar is even more disturbing. Who was by all accounts an old man at this time, we see that he uncovers her leg and kisses it, upon which he is reprimanded by the child, who calls him a vile old man. For all of the Sunni academic scholarship who believes this account to be true, can you show me where Islam allows a prospective groom to uncover the leg of his prospective bride, kiss it? It takes a special kind of, shall I say, intelligence, rather loosely, to portray child grooming as a merit. And this is exactly what the Sunni academic world is doing. They are portraying Umar's child grooming as a merit for their second caliph. Now, by any standards, this is disgusting and vile behavior. It is despicable behavior. It is a behavior that should be condemned. But because it is Umar ibn al-Khattab who is committing this act, it is portrayed as a virtue, as a merit of this individual who appears at various points in history with extremely questionable conduct. So after this, the narration goes on and says that Abbas bin Abdul Muttalib gave permission to Umar to marry her. Now, the question here then would be, by what right? Abbas bin Abdul Muttalib was not the father or the grandfather of this child and had no right to give permission, unless this is a fairy tale again. And notwithstanding these factual anomalies within the report seems to have defects in the chain itself. So not only is it weak in the transmission, it's also weak in the content, or certainly questionable according to Islamic morals in the content. But it's accepted as something that is correct. It shows further oppression on the family of the Prophet, which the Sunni academia deems as a merit for Umar. Now, the Shia version requires a separate discussion, but again, it doesn't portray Umar in good light. It shows Umar to be the tyrannical despot, the absolute psychopath, a murderous, villainous, child-grooming, authoritarian bully who did things by force without consent, and again oppressed the family of the Prophet. So these reports, if you are going to rely on them, then the implications are that Umar was a sinner, he was a child groomer, he was a bully, he was a despot, he was a psychopath, he was a sociopath. Whatever he was, it's not something that you can use as a merit. So if you do wish to rely on these reports, absolutely go ahead. But then do not be offended when people who actually have the capacity to think and to distinguish right from wrong point these out to you. Suddenly you'll find the Sunni academic world and the Sunni sheeple throughout the world as well suddenly becoming snowflakes and crying blue murder because their idol, their role model, has been accused of crimes which are being evidenced in your own literature. But I shall leave it there, and inshallah, we will return in our next show and we will carry on discussions. If you have any questions or comments, which I'm no doubt you probably will on some aspects of this show, please either leave a comment or contact us, and we will hopefully address these in the next show. But until then, Allah Hafiz from us, and Ya Ali Madad to all the Mu'mineen.